lounging, son.
Anyways, welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan. Back with me again, my boy Mario. We're gonna talk. Man, just jumped right into that. We're gonna talk the first Outcast hardcover. So the first 12 issues of it, partly because of the. Oh, you have a different cover.
Yeah, there's variants.
Oh, okay. I like that one. Actually, I don't mind. They're both pretty good. Kind of two things. One, because of the Image 30th anniversary. I think that's might have been one of the reasons you brought it up.
Yeah.
But I think you just said it before I hit the record button. Like, it is a book that people don't. It kind of gets ignored in terms of Kirkman's stuff.
Yeah.
You know, even though it did get adapted into a TV show.
I think part of the criticism started from the get-go because this show was announced before the book even came out.
I didn't know that.
And I remember Kirkman got shit for that because it started coming off more like he was intentionally writing to sell shows and more than the book.
Huh.
But then the show got super ignored because it's only on.
It was on Cinemax.
And it's the only place you can get it. I think you can buy the Blu-ray or like DVD now and stuff, but like at the time that was the only place you can get it. And then it never transitioned. It's one of the like other shows will premiere wherever they are, and then they would eventually end up on Netflix or whatever. But this never did that. It got stuck on Cinemax. So the show never really got an audience, and then the book just got fucking ignored for some reason, even though it kept going until like what 3 years ago or 4 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know I subbed to it because like I was already a Walking Dead fan, but I wasn't getting the single issues of that. I came into that late. I think there was by the time I started reading that book, it was 4 trades in. Invincible, I read from the beginning. And then I think I dropped off at some point, like, I didn't have a pull list, and that wasn't a book that once it got super into it, it wasn't a shelf book, you know, it was like subs only at a lot of shops. I feel like, or 1-2 copies on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
But I was already a Kirkman fan, so like I immediately got Outcast, and I dropped it at a certain point too, just because I don't know, I was trimming books and you know, I love hardcover, so I'm like, I'll just get the hardcover eventually, you know, like that. I'll just go that route. And I sold off the single issues. But to hear that you're saying that a lot of people were mad because he was like, they felt like he was writing for a show. This doesn't, like, I didn't know that, you know, when I was reading it, and it definitely didn't feel like I'm just writing so that I can sell this as a TV property, because the quality of the book, the writing, the character, everything about it,
the tone, the art's great, the coloring is great. It feels like if Chris Samnee and Sean Phillips like merged.
It does kind of feel like that, yeah.
That's what this feels like to me.
And you know, I think you know why it also feels like that is Elizabeth Breitweiser, who used to color all of Sean Phillips,
right,
is the colorist for that. And I think that I'm kind of upset she doesn't really do anything anymore. And I think that
other than Red Rooster and whatever else.
Yeah, whatever that crap is. Yeah, I think it was like sort of Comicsgate. Her husband, I think, was like, I mean, I don't want to like start like spreading rumors, but like I remember there was a lot of controversy with that. And like, but I've always loved her coloring. I mean, dude, all the stuff she did with Brubaker and Phillips is just phenomenal. The way she can set a tone is, I mean, to me, she's one of the best colors in the business. Next, also like Dave Stewart, right, is really good. And there's others, but yeah, I love this. I remember loving this book when it first came out. And like I said, I didn't drop it because I didn't like it. But also before we hit the record button, I said I forgot how much I like this book. To me, if you put this hardcover next, like the first 12 of this next to the first 12 of Walking Dead, this is far and above, way better, I think, in terms of like what we're getting. You know what I mean? Like it just feels more thought out.
I bring this book up every once in a while. I've never really met too many people that have even given this book a chance because it just gets ignored, and I don't really know why. I think the tone's great. There's always this like eerie feeling throughout the whole book, like something's there, something's coming, and you kind of find out that there is something coming.
Yeah.
With a lot of the family shit, I think it does a really good job of portraying like a small family in a town somewhere in the Midwest, where everybody knows each other and people dealing with the past, and how in a small town people don't really forget. And you go into the supermarket and you'll run into a bunch of people that you know there. And I think they do a pretty good job at it being like it's part family drama with kind of realistic shit that people have to deal with, and then you add on fucking demon possessions and Satan on top of it. It does a really good job of balancing both. And from the get-go, I'm intrigued in what happened. Like, what exactly happened with him and his daughter and his wife? What exactly happened to his foster sister, or his sister in the past with that other guy that they mentioned? Like,
Oh, Donnie, right.
yeah, what exactly? Like, there's so many things that they hint on immediately.
Oh, I know, for the get-go. Because the first
Yeah.
issue was I think the first issue was 48 pages, right? I mean, it was a giant size first issue. I remember that. And it was still only $2.99.
Yeah. Just trying to get people to get on it.
I mean,
Uh,
yeah, it is interesting though that you say like nobody thought, because you're right. I don't even know many people that have read this series.
Yeah.
Like I don't ever hear anybody mention this book when they talk about Kirkman. It's Walking Dead and Invincible. That's the only thing they mention when they talk about Kirkman stuff. And even like a book like Oblivion Song, like I don't hear people talk about.
Yeah.
And I've the people that have read it, I've heard they said it was good. But yeah, I think the
Haunt's the other one that we.
Oh yeah, Haunt. You're right. I like that he just gives you like just a little bit each time, right? Like he gives you a little. It's like giving you a little taste of the backstory of Kyle, and like you hear a little bit of this, and you're like, well, fuck, and then knowing where it goes.
Yeah.
Because I think, like I said, I think I've read the maybe the 3 hardcovers worth the first 36. So I think there's only 12 issues I haven't read, the last 12. But knowing where it ends up, and then going back and reading it now, I'm like, oh shit, like I didn't even realize that where that was gonna go, you know, like I just was constantly not understanding what was really going on with Kyle. Like, what is he a piece of shit like that fucking hurt his kid? You know, like you kind of, but then you don't hate him though. He's not really hateable. So it's like Kirkman does a good job of that, I think, in terms of like kind of portrays him as like the guy that fucked up his kid, right? Or like that beat his kid. But you also like, you're like, but how can it be this guy? Because he doesn't seem like he would do that.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's just great characterization. And Paul Azaceta's art.
Yeah.
This is the first time I think I read a book with his art in it. Maybe, you know, hold on, let me look it up. Because maybe I did see his stuff, because he did stuff for Marvel before, right?
I don't know. I don't think I'm that familiar with him. I can't even think of anything he's done.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, he did stuff. So Paul Azaceta had done stuff with like Daredevil, Spider-Man, Punisher, stuff like that prior to this. But I don't think I had ever really paid attention to his name. Yeah. And I think that Kirkman's shining a light. Like, I think this is one of, I used to think Invincible was his most underrated series, but now everybody fucking talks about it because of the cartoon show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But Outcast got adapted first, and still nobody talks about it.
Yep.
You know, and I thought I didn't finish the first season, but I thought the acting was great. I like this type of horror, you know, where it's not like overtly like just like a slasher type horror, or just gory to be gory. Like it's creepy, you know, it's in the face, like what's the dude's name? Not the guy that's Satan, but the dude with the hat that's walking around. What's his name? Sydney?
Yeah, well, he calls himself Sydney, as he's a neighbor's brother.
So creepy. Like what Azaceta does with those faces and the menacing looks that they get. Yeah. Where it's just like a lot of blacks, but you see their creepy ass fucking smile. Like that.
He does the same thing with the possessed people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of scenes where someone turns, and there's always that scene where they turn and they're biting their finger off, or they killed someone's wife.
Or the cop, the cop's partner, when they have the Reverend and Kyle come to try, like, well, he's not himself. You don't know him. And he's just like, look, it's so dark. It's so dark, but it doesn't feel like it's dark or like.
Well, it's dark on many levels. It's like, I'm trying to remember what the hell the name of that movie was, where it's about that family that ends up being like coven of witches. And you kind of slowly piece that together. I forgot what it's called. It came out just a few years ago. But it became pretty popular. It's like The Witch, that kind of movie where it's the same thing, where it's not completely about the horror, and it's not completely about just killing. It's a family drama, because all of them have shit they're dealing with. Like every single character has some shit behind them that they're dealing with. But gambling addiction, or drinking problems, or rape or something, and they're all dealing with it, and it's like a literal manifestation of people's demons. And that's, you could argue that's kind of what the book's about. Like, even though they're actual demons, what it's really about is people fighting their own inner demons. So I think it does a really good job of succeeding at both, and being creepy. Yeah. And having a bunch of shit that happens. I think it's really well done. I think it's one of Kirkman's best work, period, at balancing that kind of tone.
I mean, I still love Invincible. Like, that's still my favorite of his. But reading this, like, again, I like it better than Walking Dead. You know?
Yeah,
I
quicker.
liked Walking Dead for a while, but it starts to just get to me is like just repetitive. I'm just like, okay, I don't really care. It's like I get it. They live in this world of zombies,
It's
right?
a little gimmicky because it's not really about anything. It's
Right.
just things that happen, and you have arcs. But this from the get go, you introduce a bunch of shit all the characters are dealing with, and you're kind of curious as to, is Kyle going to figure out how to fix things? Is there a solution? Because he doesn't even know. He's trying to, but he doesn't even know how do you get his family back. How do you explain that all this shit happened because demon possession to someone that doesn't know what the fuck you're talking about?
Yeah, and then he
So
doesn't
how
even
do you
really
fix
know.
that?
And he doesn't
Right.
even really know what happened with his mom, right?
Yeah.
When he was a kid, and then it happening again to him with his wife, with his daughter, right? And then he starts to realize he's like attracting this, like when they're at the Reverend and Kyle are at the gas station, right? And he starts like looking around,
Yeah, everyone's
and
just
all
staring
of
at
they're just staring at him. That fucking scene right there is creepy
Yeah.
as fuck. Like I could feel the creepiness of it as if I
Yeah.
was watching it on a screen, and it's, to me, it's rare when somebody can convey that type of emotion to where when you're reading it, you feel it. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I think that Azaceta and Kirkman together just are a very, very strong creative team. And again, Elizabeth Breitweiser on colors. I think if you have a shitty colorist, that can totally fucking ruin a book. And I think the whole package is here. And the lettering, I really fucking love the lettering of this book. I have to say, Russ Wooten's lettering. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. I'm not going to be able to like verbal what I love about it so much, but it is a little bit of a different style. It doesn't feel like
I think
a
what I
generic.
appreciate is that there's certain scenes where there's a lot of dialogue where you're like talking about Bendis kind of level dialogue,
Right?
but it doesn't get in the way because you think he tries to frame it better. Maybe Bendis just has more, but there's certain scenes where
come on, Bendis has more.
there'll be scenes where it's just a monologue. It's just someone talking in a car or something, and there's a good amount of dialogue, but it's never in the way.
Yeah, and it's not every page either.
Yeah.
Like there's pages where there's like when Kyle's beating the shit out of that dude Donnie. Like
I really like that scene.
Yeah, I love it.
I love that scene.
It's great.
His brother-in-law fucking hates him, but there's somebody he hates more.
Yeah,
and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" It's like, "This is Donnie."
Yeah.
What are you talking about? This is Donnie. Oh,
okay.
I'm gonna help you beat the shit out of him.
And then, hey, you want a beer? Right at the end of it, right after the fight. Yeah, I love that, dude. I love the dynamic between each character. You have Kyle with the brother-in-law, you have Kyle with the sister, you have Kyle with his ex-wife, Kyle with the Reverend. I love the partnership of the Reverend and Kyle and where it goes, because like Reverend's like he's thought he's exercised people, right? So he tries to recruit Kyle to help him, and then he realizes, oh shit, this entire time I wasn't doing anything. So he like is going and fixing that. And then there's like hints of what's coming next, like of I forgot what Mildred, the old lady, what she calls it. Basically, like she's basically alluding to some event where they're gonna like not transcend,
like
that's
melding or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. And then just the hint of them calling him the Outcast or an Outcast. I think that's pretty cool in terms of like 12 issues in, there's still so much more mystery behind what's really going on and where it's going to end up. I have to finish the book. Like I think I said this earlier too. Like I wish I would have bought all 4 hardcovers at once, because the minute I was done with this, I wish I could have just went straight into the book too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, we spoiled the hell out of it, but like,
well, whatever. If you haven't read it by now,
if somehow you haven't read it and this intrigues you, even though we kind of spoiled it, check it out, because it's really good. I genuinely think this book's kind of special in the horror genre.
Yes.
I can't think of many. Like the only other writer that I can think of that does it this well would be like Jeff Lemire. I think even someone like Snyder. I think
Snyder is pretty good with horror. I think
Snyder at his best is like this, but I don't think he always knocks it out like this. And to be fair, Kirkman doesn't always knock it out of the park like this either. But I think this is something where all the creators came together and made something that's kind of special.
Yeah, and Walking Dead, I guess people can consider it horror, but this is a different type of horror.
Yeah,
this is like a thriller horror as opposed to like zombie flick, which it's never really scary. I mean, to me it's more comedy when I'm watching. I think
this is being driven a lot more by the family and Kyle's bullshit, like his baggage.
Yeah,
and I think that's what intrigues me more, is it's motivated more by personal stakes that, and then also all the demon stuff. So and it all intertwines because you find out that like a lot of the shit that happened to his mom was on purpose, and that they were kind of grooming him from the get-go. He was always the outcast that they needed. So you find out that it's all kind of been part of the same plan.
Yeah, that scene. I mean, yeah, you're right. We've spoiled quite a bit, but I mean, I haven't spoiled where it goes from here. But that scene where Sydney comes to his mom, who's in a coma, and you just see the fucking single
tear. Yeah.
Oh god, dude, it's so good.
It's like you fought so hard, and we got him either. He's with us either way. So you can do shit.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say like what happens, but where it does go from here, what I have read further, what I can kind of remember. It's been a long time since I read it, but I love where it ends up going, and I'm very, very excited to see finally how it ends. You know, I wish I would have just stuck with it. I think it went on like hiatus or something. Maybe did it?
No, yeah, it got with a book.
Yeah, for in between.
Oh yeah, it did. Yeah, because it's the first issue came out in like what 2013 or
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like
so there was a lot because you're saying it ended just like a couple of years ago, 3 years ago. It had to have had
it would have been on issue 60, 70 something by now.
Yeah,
and it didn't. So I think there was a point where it stopped. I think it even lost more momentum after that.
Yeah,
and it turned into the book where I was like, oh, that's still going.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it was still going either.
Yeah, unfortunately, but
yeah, it is unfortunate because it is. I love the depiction of the demons, like that black just coming out of them. I love how the minute he touches them, he doesn't like they laugh at like a cross or holy water, where he's just like the cop in the prison. Where he just
I like that because he touches them and he's like, "What the hell was that?" Like it felt like I was splitting in two. He's like, are you an outcast? Yeah, which is in that creepy way. Ah, it's so good.
Yeah,
it's really good.
I don't know what else I can say without spoiling it because I wasn't even intending to spoil this book, but it's kind of hard to talk about it without really getting into it, you know. I definitely think anybody that hasn't, you know, if you're listening and watching this, you haven't read it, but you've like read something like Walking Dead, or you watch the Invincible show and you like that, like this is, to me, it's right up there with his best writing. You know, in terms of like the characters. I care more about these characters after 12 issues than I did of the characters in Walking Dead after 12 issues. I didn't feel there was like not that real connection. You know, you didn't really feel for them. I felt for Kyle pretty early on. And you know, I think now being a dad, because I didn't have a kid when the book first started. So like I didn't, oh, that sucks, man. His daughter got taken from like that was my first thought, you know? But now I'm like thinking, I'm like, holy shit, like what if my fucking lady was possessed by a fucking demon? And then on top of the fact, not only did I lose her, but then I'm also losing my kid.
Yeah. You know, like, and then you walk around and everybody knows you as the guy that beat his daughter and wife.
Yeah.
When that's not what happened.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then like point that's the meaning of the outcast. It's double meaning.
Yeah.
Where he's the outcast in this horror stuff, but he's also the outcast of the town.
Right. Yeah, and that scene with his daughter when his daughter like walks out, you know, like, and then the sister's there, so she overhears something about like, so wait, what do you mean? What was Allison, his ex-wife? Like, what did she do? And then he won't even like get into it, really, you know, and you don't find out that. I think maybe not even in the next arc. I feel like it might be in the arc after that. So the second half of the next hardcover, I think, is where you get more into Allison, but yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite books that Kirkman's written. I don't really like everything. Like I tried to read Oblivion Song and it wasn't really for me. I just couldn't get into it. Die. No, thank you. And what's the Firepower is good, but I get it more for Chris Omni's.
Well, I think that one started off stronger. Just the last issue that came out, I feel like I'm more and more tuned out as it comes out because it stopped being about the family dynamic and him trying to fit in based on this past into now it's all fucking giant snakes and shit and dragons. And you're like,
what are you doing?
You know, that's not what I was here for. I liked more the family stuff, which is kind of like this. But that one also started off like a family dynamic with superpowers, ninja powers or whatever. And now it's just turned into this huge fantasy thing. And I've also not listened to it anymore. But
yeah,
I mostly get it because of Somni, because his art's fucking insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good reason to continue buying the book. But the last arc, I haven't read any of the current arc because it went on a little bit of a break, I think, for like 3 months.
Yeah.
But it was starting to lose me. I'm like, oh, God, what am I reading? And then I just started glossing over the text, and I was just like, I'm just gonna fucking look at the fucking art, because I don't even know what is the goal with this book. It is kind of what I felt. I felt like it was going one way, and now it's going a completely different direction of where I would have thought if you would have taken it.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily for me. And having reread Invincible from beginning to end recently, that it falls off a little bit later on, but that's for me like strong throughout. Walking Dead, I tried to reread recently, and I already got bored after the third hardcover. Yeah. And then, but this, that's why I really want to finish this off, is because I remember it stays very consistent throughout what I read. Right. So, which is I think that's about 6 trades worth of 36 issues, right? Yes, 6 trades. So I cannot wait to finish it off. I'll let you know what I think. I'm sure it's really good. Kirkman needs to do more stuff like this.
Well, unfortunately, the message was it doesn't work. But I hope he's been humbled, because this, I know, started off, people let a bad taste in people's mouth because he sold it immediately before the book even came out. And then Oblivion Song, I don't even remember, but he had a collector's edition with the first issue that was like $300. It came with a statue and all this shit. It felt like a collector's edition from like a video game, but it's like no one's heard of this series. Why would you assume it's going to be the new hottest thing? And that felt very
a little bit of ego, but you always need a project that brings you back down. I wish this wasn't the book though, because this one I felt like, it should have a finite ending. I don't like when they're aimless and they just keep going. I feel like Walking Dead. That went on too long. Invincible.
A little.
If I was reading it monthly, there's I think it's the book 7. I was reading it I just like a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, oh man, this is fucking like, what is he doing? Mm-hmm. And it kind of like I started getting bored, and then it like picks back up, right? Like towards the end. But I think he ended it very strong. Walking Dead was okay, I guess, for an ending, but I don't know. I think some books they go on too long, but then if you have like Outcast, I guess I didn't hear, maybe I would have been annoyed too, because I don't like when I feel like they're just creating a comic to sell, which is a lot of people's get down, especially when the comic book movie started selling. I'm not saying like big name creators, but maybe somebody like, like maybe us, right? Like we're doing the comic book, but really we want to get it adapted. So we're just going to put this out so that you can see the idea, and then I can shop that idea around. So you have something physical to show somebody. But I don't know. I don't think Kirkman necessarily was doing that, because he loves comics, and anybody that reads interviews with him, dude, he loves creating comic books. I don't think his intention was
right. I think this was just all around the time where, Mark Millar was doing all this shit that ended up being like the worst investment
for Netflix,
for everybody, because he was supposed to be the main guy at Fox. They like announced that he was like their advisor. Like they wanted him to be the Kevin Feige of the Fox stuff, and that went nowhere. And then Netflix bought his Millar World thing, and that's gone nowhere.
Yeah, none of it's good. None of it's selling, right? The only thing that the first Kick-Ass was good, but that wasn't part of that.
That was before all this. Yeah, he did Wanted, which was the first thing he did. That was
way different. Yeah, but it was so much different.
2008.
So much different.
And it was very different from the book. But everything after that hasn't really worked out. The last thing he did was what was it, Netflix show?
Jupiter's Legacy.
There we go. Yep.
Also wasn't as good as the book. But I didn't. Well, that's a lie. I didn't watch the fucking show. I had no desire. I saw the costumes, and I'm like, I can't get down with this. But
nobody watched it because they got canceled like pretty quickly. And I think because of all that, I think people were, because this got sold before it even came out, I think people just assumed that it was a whole gimmick, and it just kind of didn't really pan out. Plus, I think in general, horror has a smaller like fan
audience. Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. That
so you're already limiting how many people are going to buy it when it's like hard. It's more hard horror as opposed to science fiction or. Like that.
Yeah, because if let's say Kirkman's name's not on this book, I don't necessarily buy it. Back then, because horror's not my thing. Like I like the horror that I read. That's because it's somebody like by Scott Snyder, Jeff Lemire
or
Kirkman.
Gideon Falls by
You
Jeff Lemire or
know,
something like
yeah.
that.
So somebody that I like, a creator I like, makes me willing to jump in and take a chance on a genre that I don't necessarily like. And you know, because I love their work, usually I like it. It's rare that I'm like, it's not for me.
Right.
But you know, you're right in terms of like horror not being like there's not like a huge fan base in comic books, I guess, for horror comics like there is like, I don't know. I feel like sci-fi too. There's not really, you don't really see a lot of sci-fi books coming out anymore.
No, but they do all that stupid hipstery garbage. They're like, oh, if I fucking fart on a Tuesday, I go back in time 5 minutes, and then this is the one. Like I hear that a lot more, and that's all this quirky hipstery shit that Fraction started. But that's another conversation for another day.
All right, well, that's a good spot to end it. Anyways, Outcast, Kirkman Azaceta, phenomenal book, highly underrated. And I definitely think that if you're a fan of Kirkman's other stuff, probably his more well-known properties, like I said earlier, you'll definitely dig this, especially if you like his other stuff, because I think this is far and above. I mean, like I said, Invincible will always have that spot. Maybe it changes when I finish this series complete. But as of right now, this is like kind of tied with Invincible for me. But that's all I got. All right,
that's good. Just check it out. It's really good.
Yeah.
I really like the book. I try to get people into it. It's hard because most people don't know what the fuck it is. But I love it. I really, really like the book. I think it's truly something special.
I agree. Well, on that note, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video goes up. And on that note, we're out.